Hey guys, Budcat7 here. Okay, it is Friday, May 22nd, 2020, and I'd like to thank you for visiting the Stonewall Research Channel here on YouTube. Thank you very much. I really do appreciate it. Alright guys, well, in doing my research on the accounts of the quote-unquote giants, or large hominids as I like to call them, while I was looking into the accounts of Washington State and Oregon, I came across these very curious mounds that are found in these states, but apparently they're found in many more states. It's just interesting, the geographic locations of where these mounds are to be found. The only thing is that mainstream can't quite figure out how they were created. And they have a lot of theories about it, and of course people have speculated that they possibly could have been man-made, and naturally mainstream poo-poos this immediately and tries to explain it in a number of different ways, but yet they can't quite figure out what these mounds are all about. And apparently they're not only found in the United States, but found, in various different locations throughout the world. So I found it very curious what these things are when I read about them, and the fact that they can't figure out what they are, and the assumption right away that, they're not man-made, just, sends up a lot of red flags for me, because is there, an example of similar type of situation going on in any geographic location throughout the world? Well, there is. And is there an example of a clustering of strange anomalous mounds to be found elsewhere? Well, there is. And if you've been a subscriber for a while on my channel, you might know about it, but I did a video on the annular mounds that are found in western New York State. And these are some very odd mounds that look like these sort of extinct volcano kind of thing. It's a sort of stone-built, earthen-covered mound, which has like a bowl type build in the middle of it. And they don't quite know what these things are all about either. And if you do a search for it online here, you'll see that if you type in annular mounds at Perch Lake in New York State, the second up in the search here is my video on it on my channel, and here also in Rock Piles, which is a popular blog about stone-built structures, and it says Budcat7 reveals another gem. So you won't hear about these rather odd, and admittedly by mainstream that they're man-made. There's no question about that. They just don't know what they were doing with them. So they have an example of these things, and if you haven't watched this video, I'll put a link to it at the end of this video, but there's some very odd mounds there that they don't know. It has a sister site too, and I read from the Canadian archaeological report on these mounds at a sister site where a similar thing, where the New York State, they believe they found at least 70 or 80 of them, and they believe there's a lot more. I think this probably, could be subject to LiDAR, I would imagine. And they would find out more. I don't know why they don't do that, but they should, certainly. And you might be interested in hearing about these mounds in my video there. They're very unusual and odd mounds that you never heard about on anywhere else. So please do take a look at that. Again, I'll put the link at the end of this video. But what are these weird mounds to be found in Washington and Oregon here while I was reading about the accounts of these Mima mounds, and it refers this area, in, it's named that after this area in Washington State where these mounds are found, and throughout the world, they refer to them as Mima mounds. So it's a general term. It doesn't refer to a specific location, although it's named after a specific location. So let's read about it here from the Wikipedia article. Then I'm going to read another article to you. Very interesting. So, Mima mounds are low, flattened, circular to oval, dome-like natural mounds that are composed of loose, unstratified, often gravelly sediment that is over-thickened a horizon. So here's some technical terms that nobody's going to know about unless you click on it and find out about what it is. And so you see what this is. It's sort of a division in layers of soil that's not particularly conform to the layering in the other parts of the geological area. So it says here, a soil horizon is a layer parallel to the soil surface whose physical, chemical, and biological characteristics differ from the layers above and beneath. Horizons are defined in many cases by obvious physical features, mainly color, and texture. These may be described both in absolute terms. So in any case, it's this division line here that's not necessarily found in the stratification in the surrounding area. It's just this division line for some reason of this material. So it suggests something is going on. What it is naturally caused or what, they're not sure, or by something else. But let's hear what they say about these things. These mounds range in diameter from 3 to more than 50 meters, in height 30 centimeters to greater than 2 meters. So they're not very tall, similar to that of the sort of the annular mounds in a way. And in density, and from a lot of the mounds, if throughout, whether they be burial mounds or not, they seem to be wider than they are high in often, many cases. Okay. So, and in density from several to greater than 50 mounds per hectare. So that's quite a few in a, densely packed in an area here, not quite like the annular mounds, a little bit different than those, but these were set further apart from each other than what they're suggesting here. But it doesn't mean they're not man-made, but let's look into it more. At times forming conspicuous natural patterns. Mima mounds can be seen at the Mima Mounds Natural Area Preserve in Washington State. So they're named after this area in Washington State, but it's a general term. So, more sort of confusing layers to this unless you get into it. This is what higher education is all about. Our basic education tells us basically nothing. And then you have to go to college to learn more about this stuff, but who does? They specialize in other things, whatever they are. Mima is a name derived from a Native American language meaning a little further along or downstream, quote unquote. So, who knows what that might be. And the Native Americans might have come across these things a long time ago, and what could they name them? They didn't know if they were natural or built or whatever. Just they named them whatever they named them. Theories for the origin of Mima mounds include burrowing by pocket gophers. Okay, so these are the theories. Burrowing by pocket gophers, accumulation of windblown aeolian sediments around vegetation to form coppice dunes or nebkas, seismic ground shaking by major earthquakes, though none have been observed to form Mima mounds. So they have never observed major earthquakes to create these things, but they're guessing that it might have been caused by that. And shrinking and swelling of clays in hog wallow or gilgai landforms. Okay, so it's this gilgai. Is a small ephemeral lake formed from a depression in the soil surface in expanding clay soils. Additionally, the term gilgai is used to refer to the overall microrelief in such areas consisting of mounds and depressions, not just the lakes themselves. The name comes from an Australian term. So Though definitive Mima mounds are common in North America, it has not been shown that all North American mounds result from the same causes. Superficially similar phenomena occur on all continents, and the proposed causal factors do not occur in all regions that have been studied. Nor is it clear that all such mounds really are the same, either physically or functionally. For example, the so-called fairy circles of southern Africa tend to be less mound-like and occur in different climatic and ecological conditions from Mima mounds. Furthermore, it has been argued that the possibly distinct huelges of the southwestern Cape region of South Africa are of an origin far different from either. Okay, so these similar features can be seen excuse me, elsewhere around the world, but they still don't know what the causal factors are. So let's talk a little bit more, and we'll get to the article. Within the northwestern United States, Mima mounds typically are part of what is commonly known as hog wallow landscape. And it's just interesting they talk about these depressions and the sort of, pond-like areas they create and everything. This is what happens in the mountainous region. I mentioned this in my videos when I'm up in the Green Mountains there in Connecticut, is that you have what they call these snow melt ponds that happen in the mountainous regions. Okay, so when the snow melts and these depressions in the landscape will create these ponds, but they're only short-lived because eventually they dry up completely. They're absorbed by the land mass around it, and just the weather, dry weather, whatever it is, they slowly disappear, and sometime by the end of the summer they're completely dry. Some of these ponds can be quite big and be good for like tadpoles, frogs, and stuff, and they'll last all summer long into the fall when all these creatures fully develop. But you have what these in the mountainous regions, these snowmelt ponds, and it just reminds me of that when they talk about it. Just why I'm mentioning it. That's all. Okay, so the type of landscape typically has a shallow basement layer such as bedrock, hard pan, clay pan, or densely bedded gravel. I'm just interested in the whole gravel thing because we find so many of these large hominids buried in these gravel mounds, and what gravel and what that means, and evidently it has some sort of sacred meaning because all these people were buried in these gravels. In northwestern United States, Mima mounds also occur within landscapes where a permanent water table impedes drainage, creating waterlogged soil conditions for prolonged periods. Mima mounds are named after the Mima Prairie in Thurston County, Washington, where apparently during the rainy season or wet season, these mounds seem to be surrounded by water. And that reminded me of Charles C. Mann's book, 1491, which in it we find out through anthropologists, geologists, and other specialists down in South America, where these anthropogenic forests created on these mound-like islands that were connected by causeways, etc., etc. So, they were in abundance, in large geographic areas, hundreds of square miles or whatever it is. And they detected these things in the forest down there. It was totally managed landscape down there of these mounds and causeways. So looked like, from above, it would look like some sort of dotted basket weave kind of look to it or whatever. And it sort of reminds me of that when, you see this picture here, like on the cover of my video here. Look at them here. They look so, not exactly all the same, but seem rather consistent in a way. So, in any case, let's read on here. All right, so Mima mounds occur outside the northwestern United States in three major regions west of the Mississippi River, as illustrated by Cox and Washburn. First, they are found in a strip consisting of northwest Baja California, western and north central California, and south central Oregon, where they are typically known as hog wallow mounds, quote unquote. Within this strip and the area of San Diego, they are often an integral part of the local vernal pool landscape. So you have these vernal pools they're talking about again. And these vernal pools are similar to these snowmelt ponds that happen in the mountainous region. So were they trying to replicate that in a way? Because many of the ancient peoples around the world seem to be up in the mountains all over the place. Okay, they like the mountains, and whatever they do down there is different. But these vernal pools are interested me, the similarity of it to the mountain snowmelt ponds. Second, they are found in roughly north-south strip of the Great Plains containing parts of north-central New Mexico and central Colorado and central Wyoming, where they are typically called prairie mounds. Third, they are found in an area containing parts of East Texas, western Louisiana, southeast Oklahoma, and southern Missouri, where they are commonly known as either pimple mounds or prairie mounds. Finally, isolated patches of Mima mounds are also found in Iowa, eastern North Dakota, and northwest Minnesota. So they're in a lot of places here, and they have no idea how these things occur. Within Louisiana, Missouri, Oklahoma, and Texas, pimple mounds are also called locally prairie mounds, and natural mounds consist of low, flattened, circular to oval, dome-like mounds composed of loose, sandy loam or loamy sand. Typically, these mounds consist entirely of a thickened loamy and sandy A and E horizons lying either on a more or less flat or slightly but noticeably depressed clayey B horizon. So you have these layers of horizons in there that separate these layers that are not similar to any sort of sedimentary layering in the strata around in the surrounding area. So these these are in different ranges on something that would be freestanding like this. Pillow mounds range in diameter from 6 meters to more than 45 meters, in height 30 centimeters to greater than 1.2 meter, and in density from several to greater than 425 mounds per hectare. Unlike the Mima mounds of Oregon and Washington, pillow mounds are not limited to the relatively flat and poorly drained surfaces, i.e., late Pleistocene coastal and fluvial terraces. They also occur in abundance on the slopes, summits, and crests of hills, created by the deep erosion and dissection of unconsolidated and unlithified early Pleistocene and Middle Pleistocene, Pliocene, and older coastal plain sediments. So it sounds awfully like, to me, like the types of drumlins they often talk about, which is these things that remain when glacial deposits retreat and leave these mounds. And here's where a lot of confusion. They're calling things mounds. They were originally called mounds, so they kept the name. But it gets confusing because mounds are immediately associated with Native American, whatever, ancestry, large hominids, giants, whatever. And, these are not for whatever reasons. And, they don't have a lot of good reasons. See, that's the whole thing. Rarely, pimple mounds that occur on these hill slopes are elongated in an upslope, downslope direction. So, real different sort of structural arrangement there. But these things are very anomalous, and they're having a hard time explaining it. So let's see what the structure is all about. Excavations made into the Washington Mounds show that underneath a blanket of prairie grass lies a mixture of loose sand, fine gravel, and decayed plants. Not all Mima mound features have the same structure, though. One mound in Washington had a very complex soil profile. A horizon is a black sandy loam due to charcoal content from aboriginal burning on the prairies, which they did. It's burning throughout all of the Americas to control the vegetation. It just simply was done thousands and thousands of years ago. These people were managing the land, you know, the way they managed the land put anybody else on this planet to shame, really to shame, because they were masters at it. A horizon, okay, so I said that. B horizon is gravelly, sandy, loam. C horizon is extremely gravelly sand. So just keep all that stuff in mind because it's very interesting and complex there. Vernal pools. Vernal pools are shallow, superficial shallow superficial depressions that seasonally will fill with water during winter and spring rains and dry up during dry summer months. So it's so very similar to the snow melt ponds that we find in the mountainous regions here in the Northeast. Okay, and then anywhere else that might occur, but a different area here in the Northeast. That's all. Okay, so they get their name from the recognition of the seasonality of the habitat and the springtime flora associated with them. Vernal pools form where an impermeable or very slowly permeable layer underlies small and shallow depressions and creates a perched water table. The impermeable or very slowly permeable layer typically consists of either soil horizons such as durapans or clay pans or bedrock in the form of volcanic mud or lava flow. So these things prevent water from passing through and all that kind of stuff, and that's why they're called these horizons. Within California, vernal pools are quite commonly associated with Mima mounds. These Mima mounds are typically located on stable landforms that are greater than 100,000 years old. These landforms are characterized by strongly developed soils that usually have a relative impermeable layer, clay pan or siltcrete durapan, in the subsoil. This impermeable layer locally impedes drainage and creates perched water levels and causes the formation of vernal pools within the intermound depressions that are associated with the Mima mounds. Vernal pools are typically small, shallow, and complex ephemeral wetlands that only have internal drainage because they are hydrologically isolated from perennial inflow by a ring of Mima mounds. Although the ponded water that fills the vernal pools comes and goes throughout the year, it is present at least for a short time in most years. However, within California, the mound depression microrelief associated with Mima mounds is just one of a variety of geographic settings within which vernal pools occur. For example, the Modoc Plateau region of California, numerous vernal pools are found on the surface of volcanic mud flows and basalt lava flows where Mima mounds are completely absent. Okay, so they're telling you about these vernal ponds, which are similar to that occur in these Mima mounds that I'm telling you about here. Okay, and when they talk about the substrate there being of these horizons and impermeable layers, I mean, we know that the mounds were created with these, often with these very hard layers of clay to make them stable, just not simply earthen built structures. They were built with a mixture of soils. It's more than just earth. And, you're led to believe what you hear from mainstream academics that they just simply piled up the earth. And it wasn't like that at all. And a serious study of that should have been made, but I don't know anybody who's done it. But it's not simply earthworks that are just built up with just plain old earth. It's they attempted to again sort of engineered building materials. Okay, they have the engineered soil, the terra preta, made from the waste materials or whatever that they use for it, like pottery shards, etc., etc. And up by Jimmy, a lot of silica and quartz in the soil there. They did that there. So all these engineered soils, why shouldn't these things appear to be engineered as well? And the basins there for these other impermeable layers of clays or whatnot are just purposely done. Why not? That's how the mounds were built. So often so hard they had to dynamite their way in through these clays were like cement. So let's go to the article here, which I find very interesting at this Impact Lab website here. It's scientific or whatever, but from 2009, it says the mysterious Mima mounds. Okay, and here's a picture of them. All right, they seem rather uniform, and they have no idea what causes this sort of topographical anomaly. We don't know what they are, where they came from, or what caused them. Okay, that's what they're stating in this article here. Scientists love a mystery. Biologists used to have the human genome, but now they have the structure of protein. Physics used to have cosmic rays, but now they have the God particle. Astronomers used to have black holes, but now they have dark matter. And then there's the puzzle, the enigma, the joyous mystery that dots the world over, the riddle of what's commonly called Mima mounds. Okay, it's just again a generalized term. What's an added extra bonus about these cryptic whatever they are is that they aren't as minuscule as a protein sequence, aren't as subatomic as the elusive God particle, and certainly not as shadowy as dark matter. Found in such exotic locales as Kenya, Mexico, Canada, Australia, China, and in similarly off the beaten path locations as California, Arkansas, Texas, Louisiana, and especially Washington State. The mounds first appear to be just that, mounds of earth, but they only appear to be. They're much more, apparently. So it's showing again one of these pictures of the Mima mounds here, and you see a stream running through here nicely, showing you where it is in Washington over here. Bremerton is where a quarter of my family comes from. Bremerton, right here. The Harts, H-A-R-T, Hart family. The first thing that's odd about the mounds is the similarity regardless of location. With few differences, the mounds in Kenya are like the mounds in Mexico, which are like the mounds in Canada, which are like well, you get the point. All the mounds are heaps of soil from 3 to 6 feet tall, often laid out in what appear to be evenly spaced rows. Not quite geometric, but almost. What's especially disturbing is that geologists, anthropologists, professors, and doctors of all kinds, plus a few well intentioned, self appointed experts, quote unquote, can't figure out what they are, where they came from, or what caused them. Some more pictures. And just sort of consistency looking things here, consistent looking patterns here, just leads you to believe there's some human hand in it, maybe. Not man-made, hardly nature-made, and possibly not subconscious made. And notice the close-up area view of the Mima prairie mounds in Washington State right here. One of the leading theories is that they are man-made. So that's one of the leading theories. I've yet to read about it anywhere. Excuse me. I don't see it anywhere, so I don't know what they're talking about exactly. But I have a tendency to believe it just based on what I know about the midden, terra preta, the mounds, the abilities of the ancient people who created so many other similar structures, the annular mounds, right? So why not be man-made? Sounds reasonable, no? Folks in loincloths hauling dirt in woven baskets, meticulously making mound after mound after. But wait a minute. For one thing, it would have been a huge amount of work, especially for a culture that was living hand to mouth. Then there's the fact that, as far as can be determined, there's nothing in the mounds themselves. Sure, they aren't exactly the same as the nearby ground, but they certainly don't contain grain, potsherds, relics, mummies, arrowheads, or anything that really speaks of civilization. They are just dirt. And if they are man-made, how did the people in Kenya, Mexico, Canada, Australia, China, California, Arkansas, Texas, Louisiana, and especially Washington State all coordinate their efforts so closely as to produce virtually identical mounds? Well, wait, there's either one huge tribe or a lot of little ones who somehow could send smoke signals thousands of miles. Not very likely. Well, this guy lacks the imagination to think so, because it seems to me that where you find all these things were legends of giants, quote unquote giants, or large hominid culture that covered the whole planet, okay, the whole plane of the earth, okay, were inhabited by a whole unknown race of people that lived in the past, tens of thousands of years ago, that we don't know anything about, and did all of these wondrous things, okay? The dates they give to these things, they have to, because they have a new world bias, and it's the new world versus the old world. But then you see the research done with Charles C. Mann, the anthropologists and archaeologists done in South America, and the civilizations are 30,000 years old down there, and 40,000 years old, way before the Bering Strait crossing and all this kind of stuff. So there's plenty to doubt. Okay, so to say not very likely, and also um, the fact that they say that these, he says here, for one thing, it would have been a huge amount of work, especially for a culture that was living hand to mouth. Well, that sort of dismisses the colonists and settlers for building them, because they're living hand in mouth, and they somehow created, 500,000 miles of stone walls in the northeastern part of North America, some 500,000 miles, enough to build, the pyramids, 20 times over, okay? 10 by official records, or 200 times over. Sorry, it was 100 times over by official accounts, 200 times over by unofficial accounts, like Barbara Long, who says there's 500,000 miles, okay, of stone walls. So that's not a very good argument for the settlers and colonists who have built the walls. Boy, they must have been real resourceful to build something that would, be the equivalent of building 100 pyramids at Giza. So, not a good argument for that. And the fact that it was done by some ancient peoples only lends to the credibility that these things were built by some peoples in the ancient past. And here, look at the map here. And it just so happens that in all these regions they're showing here are accounts of quote unquote giants or large hominids. Just so happen to be in all of these areas. Okay? And some in between, apparently. All right? So, to hands down dismiss them as not being man made, I think is just rather poor science, because there's evidences of this other stuff here, okay? Similar stuff. Right? So don't just hands down dismiss it. Oh, and they say of the annular mounds, by the way, there's was probably hundreds of mounds like this in these areas. They just can't find them all. They're all overgrown or destroyed or whatever it is. And in other areas too, and they can't figure out what these are all about either. But they're definitely man-made. They know that. Next on the list of explanations is that somehow the mounds were created by either by the wind and the rain, or by geologic ups and downs. That there's some kind of bizarre earthy effect that has caused them to pop up. Again, it sounds reasonable, right? After all, there are all kinds of weird natural things out there: rogue waves, singing sand, exploding lakes, rains of fish and frogs. So why shouldn't Mother Nature create field after field of neat little mounds? The quote unquote natural theory of nature being responsible for the majorly mysterious Mima mounds starts to crumble upon further investigation. Sure, there's plenty of things we don't yet understand about how our native world behaves. Scientists do know enough to be able to say what it can't do, and it's looking pretty certain it can't be as precise, orderly, or meticulous as the mounds. So they're beyond that scope. They're too orderly. So I show different views of these mounds all over the place. And here's some in Africa. But still more theories persist. For many who believe in ley lines that crop circles are some form of manifestation of our collective unconscious, in ghosts being energy impressions left in stone and brick, the mounds are the same, or at least similar, the result of an interaction between forces we as yet do not understand or never will, and our spaceship Earth. Well, maybe they have something to do with the electric universe. Maybe they're electric phenomena that we're not familiar with, and maybe the electric universe in Thunderbolts projects he hasn't even explored. Maybe it's something like that. I don't know. I'm just taking a stab at it. But it certainly could have been man-made too, by my estimate, based on my research of the Mayans and all these ancient cultures and the way they build and their engineering skills. Then who's responsible? Wait for it, because they don't know. Others, those who prefer their granola slightly less crunchy or wear their tinfoil hats a little less tightly, have suggested what I, in my own ill educated opinion, consider to be perhaps the best theory to date. Some naturally have dismissed this concept out of hand, suggesting that the whole idea is too ludicrous even to be the subject of a dinner party, let alone deserving the attention and respect of serious research. But I think this attitude shows not only lack of respect, but a lack of imagination. I say so too. It certainly does. I simply ask that this theory be considered in all fairness and not dismissed, without the same serious consideration these now well respected theories have received. After all, giant gophers could very well be responsible for the majorly mysterious Mima mounds. Okay, so he's basing that on, I believe that there was some newer research um, before this article that said um, that these giant gophers were the ones who created these things, or the world, or whatever. So giant gophers are responsible for it. I find it hard to believe with all these impervious, and there's other articles, that debunk all these other claims and whatever. So there's a lot of speculation about it or whatever, but I thought it was interesting to look at these things because they are very odd and they just seem to correspond to these areas where it just so happens we have a lot of accounts of the giants. And certainly what's not mentioned in these areas of Washington and Oregon and California, there were all these burial mounds found in these places. So, and if you're talking about the annular mounds are not burial mounds. They don't know what they were for. And they've done some very deep research into it and they can't quite figure out. So I said there's some sort of mass production going on here, whether it's some sort of assembly line thing going on or whatever it is. They were doing in some sort of craft work or something from this, I don't know, but you can postulate just about anything. But it seems to me that would, give you the impetus to create all these things was something on some mass production scale or something like that. Well, thinking about these mounds, to me, just again, I thought about Charles C. Mann's book here. I see some trees, awfully big trees in there. So Washington State, right? And made me think of Charles C. Mann's book with these anthropogenic islands, with these causeways created down there in South America, that these anthropologists and archaeologists are just, totally, dumbfounded by. And apparently, all of the Americas was being managed in such a way. They talk about burning, they talk about anthropogenic forest, all this stuff in Mann's book there. So, look, maybe these things are more than they give them credit for. Somehow they can't jump to the conclusion that they're man-made because the geological features seem to suggest to them a very long time ago when it couldn't possibly be made by anybody. But that's all getting turned on its head too. So everything gets old and things get newer, but it's slow going because, just people don't want to believe these things. So anyway, guys, I thought you would be interested in hearing about these things and different theories about them. And what are they? And who created them? And to just look at this stuff here, to just very odd. And are they man-made? Maybe they are. There's no reason to believe why they wouldn't be. And theory is good, right? All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed that. If you did, please hit the like button. I thought it was very, very interesting, this thing with and what I seem to think they probably are man-made, but I think somebody, rational should look into it a little bit more. I certainly will. All right, guys, hit the like button if you liked it. Bugcat7 signing out. Peace.